Namibia needs me and Namibia needs you. Welcome to the podcast where we take the latest news stories happening in Namibia and we incorporate civic education and civic principles into it. This week we are joined by a very special guest, Sophia Stanley.
Sophia, an incredible person who started the Inner Girl Foundation 4 years ago and now has 6 people helping her advocate for free sanitary products and distributing them to schools all over the country. We talk about racism, we talk about the magistrate strike, we talk about concealment of birth. Wonderful conversation. Let's get right into it.
So we have a great lineup of stories today, very, very interesting stories. I think for the sake of time, let's get into it. I think our first story is on the issue of racism at high schools and ethnic. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't know what to say. I'm shocked and appalled. I think it's very important for us to talk about it because I think a big part of what enabled this to happen is that we're so reluctant as Namibians to talk about the fact that there's racism here.
With this whole situation, I love how the Minister of Youth and Sport went about it, where we are dealing with teenagers. So it is a little bit sensitive. However, I like the idea that he did say it was wrong. He said, okay, we'll give these children community hours to understand what they did wrong, but we're not villainizing them because they are teenagers. So it is a very touch and go topic because you are handling children. You cannot handle it as if it was an adult. And the whole idea is to not villainize them, but to educate them as to why it was wrong.
I think looking at Namibia as a country, we have a very, very terrible past of apartheid, where literally racism was the game of the day, you know? And coming from that kind of foundation and now being in a society 30, 35 years later, where we want to sort of look past colors, look past our differences, because now we judge people not based on skin color, or what, but, on the content of their character. So it is very important that we as citizens do not recognize color. And even most importantly, because of that, bad foundation, that bad history that we have, we are
Yeah.
even the last to do it because those things will now bring up very uncomfortable things in society and even amongst young kids where you feel like if, let's say, a group of white kids are able to do that, does that make them feel superior to me even after so many years of independence? So because of our bad history, it's better as a country that we do not recognize color or differences or people's sexuality or discriminate against people because of how different they are from us.
For sure. And I mean, we're 3 million people in Namibia. I mean, we have to stand together.
Yeah.
There is no, I like the idea of if someone asks me, where are you from? I am Namibian. I should start with I am Namibian,
Yeah.
not my background and my culture. I am Namibian. So I definitely agree with your approach. I think it's time we move past that. We are one. We should be one as a country.
May I offer a different take? As the
Please.
whitey in the room, I'm aware. I don't think it's necessarily always good to be focused on color blindness because if I think when we focus on color blindness, we can't reach justice, we can't reach reparations, we can't reach equity. Because if we just ignore the fact that white people still have an immense amount of privilege and still have the impunity to do degrading things like this, then we can't get to a place where real equality exists, real equity exists. So I'm afraid of focusing on colorblindness and unity at the cost of justice, especially with 35 years of no Truth and Reconciliation Commission or other type of real reckoning with the real trauma of our past, you know? So,
It's actually a very tricky thing because you see, these are kids, they are young people, and they spend most of their time either at home or at school.
yeah, but I disagreed with you on that. I love not punishing the kids. I think they were naive enough to think that this could fly. What was the culture? What was the source of the air that they were breathing that made them think that this could fly? And they're not responsible for that. There are adults, such as teachers, parents, aunties, uncles, a whole school system that made them think that this would be an appropriate costume. That I think needs to be addressed. And I know Alchemia is an organization that does racial equity, competence education. I wish I could put all of the teachers in those schools through that for a year rather than hold children accountable.
Maybe also parents as well, Ethne, because like I was saying, you see, those two institutions are the places where kids come up with most. But even in 2025, maybe you can't say that because there's also social media, there's also peer pressure. So you also don't know if they are, eating reliable content from their social media platforms, which could also play a role. But it is important that all respective parties are educated, because the core aim is that we must have a functional community and we can't function with discrimination. So, Sophia, what is currently happening is that the magistrates are currently on strike because of poor working conditions. They want increased wages. What do you think of that?
Honestly, there's a lot of change going on in the country. I mean, this is the first time we've had a female president. I know that she's working hard to address everything and all the concerns in the country. I think we should be patient as um, a country, as a community, with the way she's going about things. I think her aim is to address everything, but I understand that there is a lot of fear going on
Yeah.
of change. There is a lot of change happening in the country. So I just think, with more news to be backed on that, I think we should be patient and see how she handles it.
And I know when the founding fathers came together to write our constitution, I think no one ever thought that, the people that should
Founding
adjudicate the law.
fathers.
Yeah. Yes, like, when the Constituent Assembly met, when they were drafting our constitution, no one thought that there would be a time where judges or magistrates would be at strike. And that is why there's no legal provision for what do we do when the people that are administering justice are themselves, striking, So it's sort of a tricky situation, because now people can't get redress to their cases, people can't have their bail hearings heard, people can't have civil issues redressed, and magistrates are usually also responsible for, children's law, issuing of what do they call it, what do you call that thing when you offend someone and you must keep a distance, a restraining order. Yes, so they are responsible for issuing these restraining orders, but all those things are now at hold because they are on strike.
This is a fight that's been long coming, years in the making. And this is seen as a last resort for conversations that have been ongoing for years. So I don't think that at this point, our president has had any influence on this, and perhaps won't either. But I'm sure she'll do the best that she can through her ministers. But what I'm finding interesting is the argument by the labor organization representing the magistrates that this is a rule of law situation, Janola. If our magistrates and if our courts aren't well looked after, we have brain drain from our legislative system. We have people who have better capabilities going into the private sector. So we don't have strong legal minds as magistrates. And when that happens, how good is the legislature, I mean, the judiciary, at holding the other two branches of government to account? If we have a weak judiciary because we're not looking after our magistrates well, we're not paying them well, they leave to other places. And there's more impunity for things like corruption.
For sure. No, most definitely.
Yeah. And it's really a double-edged sword situation, because here you have one hand, employees, magistrates that say, no, look, I deserve better. But the fact that they made the decision now affects another maybe person that needs to get a restraining order, another person that needs to get a redress on a civil case. And maybe there should have been a constitutional provision for what do we do when the people that adjudicate the law are themselves on strike? So what do we do to then cater for the people? I know there's no legal provision, but there should be, because people still need to be catered for. But these people still need to strike for their better wages. So it's like, but of course, yeah, it's still a developing story.
You're describing the essence of any strike.
Yeah.
It's like, if my job were replaceable,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to pay me.
Yeah.
So pay me better, because look, my job is not replaceable.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the minister also came out and said, no, the claims are very unfounded. Please let the magistrates just go back to court, let the negotiations continue. But again, the magistrates and the labor organization representing them are like, no, look, the negotiations have been going on even with your predecessor. So now it's the time that decisions must be made.
The decisions have actually been made. They've not delivered on promises, actually, apparently. This week has been full of lots of packed news, and
Yes.
one of them really touching and emotional to all of us because we see it too often in the news. Do you want to lead it for us?
So, in the news, or yesterday's news, there was another case of baby dumping. It really touches home for me because I provide sanitary products to less fortunate girls. And when I go and do those drives, a lot of the time I see that there are more than a handful of girls that are pregnant simply because they are, first of all, unsure of contraceptives, so they refuse to take it even though it is free and made available to them.
And by unsure of contraceptives, you were telling us earlier, the main concern is this ongoing myth that just will not die, that contraception makes us infertile and we won't be able to have babies later. When will that myth die?
Honestly, I hope soon because I mean, the fact that contraceptives are free, that is amazing because it is an option to not be put in a situation that if you cannot say no, at least you know that you are protected.
This is the other point I found so interesting that you brought up, because very few people who speak about baby dumping, and I want to rephrase that and I'll tell us why later, very few people who talk on this topic realize that such a big part of it is rape, is unconsensual sex, is statutory rape. And you immediately pointed it out. What made that obvious to you? How did you learn about that fact?
Well, it took me some time, I will say, especially coming from a privileged background. You don't have a lot of knowledge about these things. So it actually started when I started with my foundation back in 2021. It was made clear to me that a lot of these girls go back to homes that are not safe for them, or a community in an area that is not safe for them. So that was made aware to me. And on top of that, I don't know if you guys have seen on social media, but everyone is changing their icons to purple.
Purple.
Yes.
I saw it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's very fitting because, again, rape. It's a yeah. I don't know how we will overcome that. I think the best thing that the girls can do right now is forget the bad opinions about contraceptives and what it does to you, but take the good in the fact that yes, you're not put in a comfortable situation, but you are protected from having children when you are too young to understand what it means to have a child and how to go about taking care of it, you know?
It also comes down to, like, let's say, personal responsibility. You know, as young people, we need to take preeminence to educate ourselves. You must be able to not only spend a lot of your time on social media or, you know, going out or whatever, but take interest in the things that could benefit your health, that could benefit your well-being. You know, I would love for you to know all things about democracy and governance and branches of government, but maybe you are a young girl and you are looking in your environment, you know, and you are saying, no, but all these young girls before me, they also fell pregnant and they left school. I don't want to be like that. What can I do? Because you must be situationally aware, and that would really just be my encouragement, that take preeminence for your own self-development. Look around your environment and say, what must I do better? Maybe doing better is just walking to the clinic and saying, look, what are my options? You know, or maybe speaking to a social worker. I know a lot of times at the life skills teachers at school, they have this information. Maybe they don't know it, but they could even point you in the right direction. So as a young lady and even as a young man, go and take preeminence, ask the right questions so that you are protected.
And I guess the reason why I refer to it as something other than the word that we traditionally use for it, I choose to say, and I encourage other people to say, concealment of birth, is because the popular term insinuates that these are people making a decision to discard of human life, which is very far from the truth. In fact, these are people who are often extremely traumatized and extremely in denial of the fact that they are pregnant. And the reason that they can be so in denial of the fact that they're pregnant is because they're extremely unsupported. Supported people would have made different decisions. Calling it by a better name, such as concealment of birth, acknowledges that the extreme trauma that these people are going through to get to a point where this is the eventuality.
That's a beautiful way of going about it.
These aren't people making a decision to discard of human life at all. But tell us more about your foundation.
Inner Girl Foundation is my baby. I have been doing it for 4 years now. We are a team of six, and it actually just started with me getting a group of young individuals who also have the same drive that I do. So the people that I've chosen to be part of the team have done the same initiatives, whether it's Young Round Square or have partaken in um, a lot of other NGOs or have decided to support other NGOs. I love talking to the kids, interacting with them. They've opened up a lot about sanitary products, hygiene, because these are our next leaders. So we need to give them the support that they need in order to stay in school, in order for them to be the next lawyers and doctors. So that's a whole aim, is to make sanitary pads free, overall, and also that they can feel confident enough in their own bodies.
No, I find that absolutely beautiful, especially on the aspect that you saw a problem and just said, you know what, I'm not going to wait for government. I'm not going to wait for my pastor, neither my counselor or whoever. I'm actually going to do something to address a challenge. And that is ultimately what we want to promote as Namibia Needs Me. A lot of citizens that must just say, look, in your environment, there are a lot of issues. Maybe it could even be waste dumping, or it could even be around access to water or drilling of boreholes or whatever. You look at that problem, don't wait for government, see already what you can do. And that is how you are an active citizen. And it's beautiful that you are addressing an issue and it affects positively impacts a lot of young girls. And I'm sure you have a lot of great testimonies.
You're not voting this year. Do you want to tell us more about it? We love just hearing everyone's stories because it normalizes all of our struggles with getting involved to the right extent. You know, you're so involved in some ways, you're less involved in other ways. We struggle to kind of collect it all together. And all stories are valid. And so I just wanted to hear more about the fact that you haven't voted and what your plans are around that.
Yeah, I'm very sad that I will not be able to vote this year. There's also this stigma of people who don't vote. They they're not interested in what's going on. On the contrary, we are eager to vote. We are eager to make a change. You don't have to be voting if you're not able to, but send it to your friend that the votes are coming up or the elections are coming up. You know, share it on your stories. That is a change.
Running up to the elections, we'll be sharing a lot of information all about it. And we hope to see you at the polls next year.
Yes, most definitely.
What an amazing conversation we've had with Sophia. If you want to learn more on civic education and democratic principles, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and of course, our website. The Namibia Needs Me website is a civic education database made just for you.